Locals who used to own property here often end up as virtual slaves to the ruby trade. It is hard, back-breaking work, and guards ensure the gems they do find are handed over. This man, a supervisor, tells us people here are given less than $1.50 a day for their efforts. We visit several mines, and in each are the elderly and more children. $216. And
Ruby, yellow gold.
where's the rubies from? Mogok?
Mogo ruby, natural stone.
Natural stone. Here is where much of the jewels end up, government-run emporiums in the country's capital. Despite sanctions last year, the state earned a record $1.67 billion. It's been a good haul on this day. Rubies now destined for international markets, with profits these workers will never see. Al Jazeera, Mogok, Myanmar.
This is Al Jazeera. Let's take a look at the stories making the headlines now. Forces loyal to the Libyan leader Muammar al-Gaddafi have launched new airstrikes on the eastern oil towns of Ras Lanuf and Brega. Rebel forces are reported to be retreating now from Ras Lanuf. The son of Libya's leader is warning rebel fighters they'll face a heavy defeat by the government forces. But foreign ministers from Arab Gulf states have added their voices to mounting international pressure on the regime. They say Gaddafi's government has lost its legitimacy. Well, Saif al-Islam's comments came after NATO's Secretary General said the alliance plans to move more warships to the Mediterranean. NATO defense ministers are in Brussels, where they're discussing possible military action in Libya. But Anders Fogh Rasmussen says NATO still needs a clear legal mandate to enforce a no-fly zone over Libya. Saudi Arabia's Interior Ministry says 2 protesters and a policeman were injured when police fired into the air in the eastern city of Qatif. Demonstrators there have been holding rallies calling for political change and the release of 9 political prisoners over the past 2 weeks. Websites have called for a day of rage on Friday. Yemen's opposition has rejected President Saleh's offer to create a parliamentary system. Thousands of protesters are continuing to demonstrate against his rule despite his offer of change. President Ali Abdullah Saleh has called for a constitutional referendum by the end of the year. Stocks have opened lower in Japan and Hong Kong after the Dow Jones Industrial Average had its worst day in 7 months. It fell nearly 2%. Concerns about protests and instability in major oil-producing countries are being blamed. Alassane Ouattara says the African Union has endorsed him as the rightful leader of Côte d'Ivoire. He made the declaration at an African Union summit taking place in Ethiopia. But it's the first time Ouattara has left Côte d'Ivoire since the political standoff began. The U.S. state of Wisconsin has pushed through a Republican plan to curb the union rights of public sector workers. The contentious measures to address budget deficits follow weeks of angry protests. The state governor is promising to quickly sign the bill into law. Well, that's it for now. We'll be back at the top of the hour. Stay with us.
Few events capture the whole world's attention. Fewer still hold it in the era of mass media. In the Middle East, men who have ruled for decades, gone in days. From regional superpowers to wealthy Gulf states, all have felt the impact of the death of a penniless fruit seller in a small provincial town in the heart of North Africa's smallest country. Ultimately, Tunisia reflects a universal truth. One person who is not afraid to die can start a revolution, but it is only when hundreds and then thousands have lost their fear that a revolution becomes inevitable.
The world is still trying to understand exactly what the revolution here in Tunisia really represents. For the West, this was a liberal movement that achieved for the Arab world its own Ceausescu moment, the getting rid of a hated dictator and his family. For people in the region, this is proof positive that ordinary people can overthrow a regime. For Tunisians, the reality is far more complex.
Internet, Facebook, Twitter, they were logistic support. They were not the revolution.
This regime was like, it's like a cancer.
في الحقيقة احنا الشعب التونسي لم يتعود على سماع القصص.
I saw people dying. I saw a guy shot straight in his heart.
Ils disent leur fierté d'avoir vu notre peuple, notre jeunesse, les mains nues, affronter la dictature et mettre à terre le dictateur.
أي واحد شهيد مات الحق يحب يدافع على شعب يحب يدافع على تونس.
If there is one lesson for autocratic rulers across the world, it is not to ignore your subjects, however insignificant they might seem. There is a tragic symmetry to the story of this revolution. The most powerful man in the country brought down by one of the most powerless.
والله محمد ولدي معناها إنسان بسيط، إنسان معناها باهي، سلوكه طيبة، متعاطف معايا ومع خويانه، يخدم معناها في مورد رزق، أجل عاش يتيم، خلاه بابا عمره معناها 3 سنين.
Mohamed Bouazizi started selling fruit at the age of 10 to support his family, later giving up his own education to send his sisters to school and then university.
اللي يبقى الماضي ساعتين ماضي 3 متاع الصباح يروح يمشي يرقد من با ساعتين 3 سوايع زيد يفيق من جديد غدوة الصباح وديما يشجع فيا على قرايتي ديما يهز لي في المورال نتاعي ومورال العائلة الكل ديما يواسي فينا ديما يصبر فينا والحمد لله.
Mohamed Bouazizi was not the first young man to take his life in the country's impoverished and forgotten south. But the way he was treated by the local authorities on the 17th of December had a resonance for all Tunisians.
أنا الصباح نهار الجمعة الصباح مشيت نسعى نخدم معناها في الفلاحة البرة وطليت على البيت متاعه وهو نلقيه راقد نوم عميق قلت له والله يعاونك يا محمد ولادي.
يقوم الصباح كيما سيور الايام كيما الليل